Mr. Allison, 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today. My colleague, Mr. Normandy, asked the question of the Minister in terms of when it comes to procurement and other departments, and we hear this all the time, the issues of silos, departments, and all those other kinds of things. It's a real issue. I mean, I've been here 20 years, and it's still an issue 20 years after I arrived. My question to you is, there's probably no easy answers to fix this, but do you have any suggestions in terms of what you would recommend based on your experiences on how we could streamline the process? And remember, once again, a lot of the concerns here is that, okay, when we finally do decide to move forward with things, either it takes another longer time or we got to go through the process, and so it takes many, many years when we find some of our allies being able to procure things in a quicker fashion. So once again, that's not a system you guys set up, but you're now part of it. You see it, you probably witness it every day. You're probably frustrated like we are as well. Any solutions for us or any thought processes on how we could do a better job as a government to be able to procure defense or procure anything really in a timely fashion? But we're here talking about defense, so we'll leave it to that.
So, thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. It's a fantastic question and really had the heart of the matter, I find, for this committee. So I actually personally chair the ADM level Defense Procurement Strategy Committee, and my DM, Deputy Minister Reza, she chairs the Deputy Minister level. I find I've been in the system now for a few years, and I go back to years where the three departments that need to be at the table to execute procurement were barely at the table. It was difficult to get them together. We now have a very sound governance system based on the 2014 Defense Procurement Strategy that has actually matured to a pretty good point at this time from a functionality point of view, from an effectiveness point of view. I think if I was going to identify one area where this governance could be improved is after things get to the Deputy Minister level, because we sit down on a regular basis according to specific agenda and we review projects that need specific decision according to procurement gates, would be an easier access to how to bring the procurement home from the final decision point of view. So that access to the minister layer needs to be improved. And hopefully, with the work that we're doing now, we'll be able to work this out.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So I guess my another question as it relates to that then. So in terms of, we've had some issues around the timeliness of being able to get things there. So is that because we've taken too much time to figure out what we want? It seems like we appear as our allies are able to get things like kit, in Latvia and stuff like that, and we have a hard time procuring things like that. What are some of the challenges that we have to be able to deliver those things? Is it because we've committed money that we're going to get, 20, 30 years from now, or maybe 10 years from now, or is it maybe a question of like, how do we move this thing through the system? Like, once again, those checks and balances we talked about, being able to do that. And I look at, the immediate needs that we need right now in Latvia, and, where are the bottlenecks in making that happen?
Yeah, again, thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. It's another great question. And the engineer in me splits this procurement system in three portions. The pre-solicitation portion, the solicitation portion, and then which leads to a contract award, and then contract award and delivery of goods and equipment in most cases for us. I think to your question, the pre-solicitation is often underestimated because if you want to buy a plane or build a ship, you need the appropriate lead time. You cannot just turn around and expect a ship to be delivered in 2-3 years. You need the lead time. That lead time is sometimes misappreciated in the pre-solicitation activities. Within the solicitation activities, sometimes we underestimate also the complexity of the procurement and how things, for instance, in a shipbuilding project, the design phase is significant. And it does pay off to take a little bit more time in that design phase ahead of signing the big contract to build a ship. And then after contract award, where the accountability should really start, like the strong, rigid accountability should really start, then it's a partnership with industry, and we need to work better with industry. But that planning phase is also a phase where industry needs to be involved. And for me, we could do that better. I think to your exact point, sometimes, yes, projects will sit in what are we doing, which requirement do we really want phase, and they underestimate the time that's going to be actually required to deliver.
Okay. John, that's fine. Yep. A minute still?
You've still got a minute? Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, thanks. I guess the question in terms of how does, so what's the process then in terms of being able to address the critical gaps? Because we talk, we look at sleeping bags, example for the last thing. How do you deal with the gaps in terms of what we ended up with versus what was required? Like, where does that fall down?
Yeah, so the capability planning and the requirements come from the client department. So this would be a great question for the client department. They have a process to plan capabilities, to identify requirements. They have a specific panel, the independent panel on defense and procurement acquisition, that reviews all the requirements, and then the projects eventually come to us in PSPC for the pure execution of the solicitation process. So for me, for instance, let's take the submarines. We want a submarine in year X. Well, the procurement should get to us in X minus Y. And these two X and Y need to be really tackled properly and well. You would almost be thinking that for the big stuff the Canadian Armed Forces need, the big fleet, your fighter jet, your combatant at sea, your submarines, your maritime helicopter, that we would have a continuous capability planning cycle. Because as soon as you get the new aircraft, a few years later, it's time to think about the next one, especially in today's world. So it's a fantastic question, and for me, don't want to say it's a pet peeve of mine, but I think if there's an area we could all collectively do better as a nation, is that planning phase ahead of things entering what I call the pure solicitation process box.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Allison. Mr. Stewart, a tight 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. I'll also try not to contribute to your crankiness. Thank you to the witnesses for being here today. My question first just about general defense procurement. Is it lumped in kind of with the same processes as procurement for other departments? Or are there kind of some special considerations that DND needs because of the national security element of it?
So if you're referring to our general rule set, so the answer is no. So it's all lumped in. So the government contracts regulations, which were referred to, cover all procurements.
Okay, and how do you prioritize which contracts or projects should receive? How do you prioritize whether it's looking at a new contract for munitions versus, say, the subs?
That's more clear.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. That's a great question, and it is really the governance that I explained earlier, the defense procurement strategy governance, where 3 departments meet and we review various projects, various solicitations, is already prioritized according to the need and requirements of the client department. So that prioritization happens in their world. They have a program management board that they run within national defense that will dictate the pace and the priorities, and we try to obey that,
right.
that cycle.
At any time you could have one thing bumped up ahead of another.
Absolutely. So, and that would be the case, for instance, for an urgent operational requirements, that I could ask my team to pause on one thing and execute a UOR.
When we're talking about the shipbuilding program and the subs, we're going to be able to procure subs and ships at the same time?
So thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So the National Shipbuilding Strategy right now has 3 strategic partners, 3 large shipyards. They have programs of work that they have signed up to in their umbrella agreements under some specific terms and conditions that actually are going to be, I think, mirrored in what my minister was speaking about earlier about strategic partnerships. These programs of work can be in motion at any one time, depending on government priorities. My assessment at this time is that the submarine project will come in, will be assessed from a capacity point of view, capacity domestically for maybe some sustainment, capacity internationally, and we'll be able to fit it in.
Okay, so when that project does ramp up, I know you said you have a nice tight team right now that's looking at the subs. How many more people do you think you're going to need to execute on that procurement?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. This will be a massive procurement. I'm comparing it early with the Canadian Surface Combatant. So the Canadian Surface Combatant, we started probably in the early days with a team of 15, 20. We're now around 40. So I would see the submarine probably going in a similar direction.
Okay.
Now, the team at DND will be a lot more numerous than mine. The head count will be a lot higher over there.
The Arctic offshore patrol vessels, are there lessons learned from that procurement that are directly applying to the procurement of the frigates that are going to help to kind of streamline and we can do continuous improvement?
Absolutely. Actually, it's one of our key discussion point with Irving Shipbuilding is make sure that the learning is implemented, and we're seeing results, by the way. And this project went through COVID. It survived COVID very nicely. But as we're going to launch in a few days AOPS number 6. It's been on a really good stream of delivery, and that delivery for me has integrated lessons learned, and some of those are definitely going into the Canadian Surface Combatant preparations as we expect to cut steel on the Combatant sometime in 2025.
Were there any RFIs or RFPs that were canceled as a result of the recent budget cuts in the DND budget?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. As far as I'm concerned, in PSPC, and we run the RFIs and the RFPs, we have not canceled anything.
Okay. Okay. How long does it generally take? I mean, just with regards to the subs, there's some RFIs that are in right now. When do you think actually the first purchase orders can be placed for a hull or something like that?
So thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. With all due respect, I'm not sure if I want to answer that at this time. It's too early. We barely have the high-level parameters of the project. So I'd like a bit to my earlier point that sometimes we're too early in putting parameters around the project. I don't think we're in a space to do this at this time.
Thank you.
Speculate.
Minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks the witnesses for being here. Mr. Page, can you just confirm whether or not the surface combatant design has been finalized? Or are they still ticking around?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So, no, the Canadian Surface Combatant design has not been finalized, but it has been brought to a really good level of maturity, and at a level with a bit more work to do here ahead of the full rate production cut steel.
So how many years have we been in design phase?
Yeah, so I'll just, I think, approximately 5. And Mr. Chair, just so it's understood, the design of the Canadian Surface Combatant will last well past the full rate production cut steel, and it is smart to do so. You cannot expect to lock something before you start platform number 1 and bring this when you have 200 plus systems being integrated and many things in play.
Okay, thank you. When we did our procurement study here, one thing that we heard from many, many witnesses is that PSPC and DND have a culture of risk aversion. So instead of being risk evaders, how we turn everybody into risk takers?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair, and maybe I'll also let my colleague ADM Hardy speak about that and some of the work that she's doing. I must say again, speaking for having been the ADM at PSPC for the last 4 years, we are very much an organization that looks at every variables around the procurement. But I'd like to think that we have taken some risk in the last few years with respect to some of our procurement, and it has paid off. So I think we are sensing that the operational urgency of doing things differently, and that has the risk adversity piece being assessed and being managed accordingly.
Okay, can I just keep on, because I got a number of questions here. In the procurement review process that you're undertaking right now, when will you be consulting the defense industry on how to improve it?
Thanks very much for the question, Mr. Chair. So I have been consulting, so on a more bilateral basis. Did that starting kind of late last year and into the spring, up to the summer, and then started working on our recommendations. But in the context of the defense industrial strategy that my colleagues at National Defense will be leading with Minister Blair, there will be additional consultations.
So when you're saying
industry.
bilateral, you're talking just to the major companies that right now are supplying?
Companies and the industry associations and appearing at meetings, and I've been very
So you've been talking to CATSI and others?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you were talking about using UORs and NSCs, if we're going to do a UOR, why don't we just do an NSC, a national security exemption, in place of an urgent order for request?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So I would say that, again, case by case, some UORs may be not necessitating a national security exception. And we will examine the requirement just like we do for a larger procurement.
So just right now, what's the thresholds that National Defense has that they can actually go and procure themselves before they have to go to PSPC? What's that level?
You mean in terms of money?
Money, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I wrote it down because, so at National Defense, for a competitive requirement, they can go up to 7.5 million.
7.5, that's it?
That's it.
When was the last time that was increased?
I don't have that.
Would you
that
be able to
date.
get that for us and send it back in writing? I appreciate that very much. That seems awful low, especially when you look at anything else. The munition supply program, we're hearing from industry that it's taken forever to get orders signed, direction from the government to expand it. We see growth in munitions, especially in the 155s, that are happening under U.S. orders, but not necessarily much increase from the Canadian standpoint. In meetings that I've had with U.S. officials, including at Halifax, they want Canada to be a reliable supplier, especially in the sides of munitions, ammo, and rockets. How do we make sure that those are taken care of under MSP?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Minister Chair. And the munition supply program is actually an effective tool. It's a strategic program where we can actually, to the question I had before about planning ahead, we can do some of that. I won't say it's perfect, and actually we just conducted an evaluation of the program, and we're going to take some of the recommendations and we're going to put them forward. But just to give you a bit of an appreciation within the MSP itself, in 2023, there were over $470 million expended on various types of ammunition, from small, medium, large caliber, 9 millimeters, 25 millimeters, and larger caliber. I think ammunition at the moment is getting a bit of a sour assessment because of the 155 millimeter ammunition that we want to produce domestically. Again, to my planning piece, this is not easy. And telling industry we need an end-to-end produce in the country 155 artillery round does not happen in weeks. So there's infrastructure investment required. There's technical data packages that need to be procured from the United States. There's all kinds of things that need to be done from a resource point of view before you're in a position to do that.
That's a very important response to that question. If there's something you wish to add to it, please write to the committee. This is coming up all the time.